guys, what is up? My name is Josh, or you may know me as DodaTech. Today we're building a PC. So, client emailed me and he said he wanted a budget gaming PC. So that's what we've got here. So for the case, we've got the Thermaltake V4 Black Edition. It's a very nice case, it's quite budget oriented, but it's still a nice case. It has quite decent looks. It's got USB 3 up on the front here. And yeah, it also comes with a OEM power supply, so we took that out because we're going to show you how to install that if you don't have this case. But yeah, for the CPU, we have the Intel Pentium G3240. For a motherboard, we have the ASRock H81M-HDS. For RAM, we've got two 4GB sticks of Kingston, I think it's their Value series. This is 1600 MHz RAM, and I think it's C11. Yeah, C11. So yeah, nice high performance RAM. Well, budget RAM, but it's about as good as you're going to get. We have a Western Digital 1TB blue. That's going to be the only drive in this system for the moment. We also have a copy of Windows 8.1 Home 64-bit. And the most expensive part, the Asus Radeon R9 270X Direct CU2 Top. See, I had to read the model number there. So let's get to building. We basically want to clean up our workspace. So these parts here, like the graphics card, the motherboard, the operating system, and the CPU, they can go away for the moment. So we're just going to place them back here. Maybe you'll be able to see them behind me there. But we'll talk about tools. So basically for this build, we're going to go with a standard Phillips No. 2 screwdriver. It's just a nice ratcheting driver I've got here. I've also got some other bits here, so we're probably not going to use them, but I've got a flat, some Torx bits. We're probably not going to use them today. And some sort of knife to open parts with. But yeah, so we unboxed our case and we've got this documentation, so we're just going to set that right there. I'm going to leave the plastic on this for the client to decide. Actually, no, I'm not. We're going to peel all of this off. So we've got all this front plastic here, as well as this top bit up here, as well as a bit on this side panel window, and it looks like there's another bit on the inside of that. So we're just going to set that over there. And now, if you look, there'll be four screws on the back here. And on this case, two of them are thumb screws, so we're going to undo the thumb screws for now. If I can get that one. You might need a screwdriver to do this. If they're thumb screws from the factory, sometimes they're a little tight. So we're going to set them where we'll remember them. And now, usually the case panels, they just slide back and come off. This one's a little different. It slides back a little bit, and then it pulls off like that. And there's no plastic on the inside like I thought, so we're just going to leave it like that. We'll put it back in the box. We're putting the panel back in the box, I should say. And let's have a look at the inside of the case. So we've got a power supply mount down at the bottom here with a dust filter, which I'm not sure if it comes out or not. Got our 5¼ inch bays up here. These are the ones you'll see from the front. We're not putting an optical drive in this build, so we won't be showing you how to use them. We've got our hard drive bays down at the front here, and our motherboard is going to sit here. We've also got a fan here at the back, and there's none at the front, so it's just this one fan we have to hook up. So yeah, there's also, oh that's nice, There's also a bunch of screws in this Ziploc bag, which also has another Ziploc bag with the actual screws in it. This has got some hard drive screws, some motherboard screws, some motherboard standoffs, and we'll show you what they're like afterwards. It's also got a little case speaker, so this will go on your motherboard. It will have post readouts, like that's what makes the little beeps. So we're going to chuck these back in here, and we'll set that over here. We've also got, let me come around here. I don't know if you can still see me, but we've also got all these connectors here, and they're all zip tied together, as well as this one fan connector, which is kind of on its own. We just want to leave them kind of out of the way. So I left the RAM out, don't know why, I'm going to put that back behind me. So to start, you can see me again, we're going to put the power supply in. This is really the easiest component to put in. It's literally, usually it's 4 screws, but with this case it's got an extra little bit to hold it in, which is another 2 screws. Don't know if your case will have that, usually cases don't, but this one has got, let's see if I can show you here, it's got an extra little bit that screws in from the bottom of the case. Let's see if the camera will focus on that. Let's put it in my hand. It's got an extra little bit that will bolt the power supply in. So that's not terribly useful. Most cases don't come with that. But yeah, so we're just going to get all the cables out of the way. And you'll notice, usually, there's 2 types of power supplies, one with a fan on the bottom, one with a fan on the back. The ones with the fan on the back, you just put it in whichever way it fits. The ones with the bottom, you have sort of a decision to make. If you're going to set your power supply on carpet, you want to have the fan upwards, so it can breathe air in from your case. If you are not going to set it on carpet, you're going to set it on tile or wood, you want your fan downwards, so it can breathe air in, nice fresh cold air from the outside of your case. It's up to you whether you do that or not. Since it's got a fan on the back, I'm just going to put it in whichever way it fits in this case. So you turn your case around, you'll see there's 4 screw holes in each, well, 1 in each corner here, and 1 is offset. So what we're going to do is see on the power supply, there's 1 screw hole in each corner and then 1 is offset. This one technically you could say is offset too, but there's one that's really, really, really offset. So this is the way the power supply is going to go. Also the label will be seen from the inside of the case if it goes that way, as you might be able to see there. So to install your power supply, you just rest it as best as you can inside your case, like so. You look at the back and you line the screw holes up, like we've done here. And like I said, there's 1 screw in each corner. So you want to grab your power supply screws. If you're getting any aftermarket power supply, it'll come with screws, but your case will also come with screws. And they're a hex head, well, let's see if I can show you here. They're sort of a coarse thread with a rounded head, but with the hex shape around it. So is that going to focus? Not really. So yeah, I might do an overlay of the screw, I don't know. But basically it's 1 of them in each corner. Now you don't want to tighten them straight away. Now this can be difficult. So you want to hold your power supply in, and I'm not giving you a very good angle of this, but you want to hold your power supply in, and just start each of the screws. So I've started that one there. And you want to work diagonally. It's generally a good idea to work diagonally with computers so you don't put any stress, well, as much stress on the components. So I'm just going to seat this in here. If I can get the screw in. Another reason why you do it diagonally is so you have a little bit of wiggle room with your components. So we've put that one in. We haven't put them in all the way, so we have wiggle room, so we can put the other screws in. So like I said, this is a ratcheting driver, so I don't have to, oh, just bumped the mic there. So I don't have to, that's probably very loud. So I don't have to turn the screwdriver. It's just a nicer screwdriver. You can use a normal screwdriver if you want to. So now that that's in, we just want to tighten down the rest of the screws. And like I said, you want to go diagonally. You want to be snug but not too tight. And work diagonally, like I said, and just snug them up. Don't want them too particularly tight. So now that that's in, that's the most you're going to have to do with any normal style case. But with this case, there's an extra bit we have to put in the bottom. So I'm going to take the other panel off, just so I don't scratch it when I lay the case down. So there's just two other screws. I think they're the same as the power supply screws. Yeah, they look about the same as the power supply screws. Generally, case and power supply screws are the same. Generally there. Power supply screws usually aren't thumb screws. With this case, two of the side panel screws were thumb screws like this, compared to normal style case screws like so. So there's the normal thumb screw, and there's the case and power supply screw. So now that that panel's off, it comes off the same way, it just kind of falls off. We're going to place this in the box, but with the styrofoam in between the two panels, so we don't scratch any of the panels on one another. We're also going to set the screws out of the way. Actually, we might stick them in this bag here so we don't lose them. And they're black, so they match the case. And yeah. So this bit that I'm about to do isn't on normal cases. I've never seen any design like this. But this case has a little bit, as I showed earlier, that basically hugs the power supply and gives it a little extra sort of, see if I can show you. So there's this little bit I showed you before, and if we look at the power supply down here, it just sort of clips on. I can get a good shot here. See here, I'm moving it with my fingers. Just sort of clips on and screws to the bottom of the case. So I'm going to do that now. Sorry I can't give you a better angle of this, but there's no real good angle I can do. So I'm going to put a screw on my screwdriver, set the ratchet so I can turn it without moving my hand. And it doesn't matter whether you do the bottom or the top screw first, just basically snug it up like the other ones. And yeah, if you're on the last screw that you're putting in, you can tighten that down. Won't hurt anything because you're going to tighten the other one anyway. So they're both snugged down. And like I said, that bit is optional. Make sure you haven't trapped any cables under your power supply before you go any further. And we haven't. So yeah, the power supply is installed. There's also a rubber band and a couple of zip ties on the power supply. Afterwards, we're going to put those in. Well, hopefully put those in. Put those in, take those out. We're going to take those zip ties and rubber bands off because cable ties, there's also a cable tie in here, did I mention that? Cable ties, they have wire in them, and if that wire touches any of your components, they'll short out, most likely. So if each end of the wire touches an electronic component, it'll short out. So that's very bad, it basically kills your computer. But now, we're gonna put a hard drive in. So this is our Western Digital 1TB blue, and basically got a tear here bit. Western Digital is the only drive manufacturer that I know that does this sort of tear here style food packet. Now, this little piece of, or this little bag of desiccant is the only piece that says do not eat. Apparently you can eat everything else, but do not eat this. I'm going to show you this just in case you get confused. You do not, under any circumstances, want to eat this. This is very bad for you. And apparently all of the lead and mercury in this is alright. Sorry, that just cracks me up. But yeah, we've got the hard drive here, and you'll see the hard drive, see, it's nice and shiny. It has 3 screws on each side, as well as 4 on the bottom, screw holes I should say. So 1, 2, 3, 4, as well as, I'm sure you saw, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You want to grab the little bag or box of screws that came with your case. And you want to find the screws. Now it's different. There was a standard with this once upon a time, but it's different with every case manufacturer now on. So I'm guessing these are the right screws. I'm going to check before I commit to it here. Yep. So the screws you want to grab are these little screws with the round head, and I'll show you once I get one out. It's these screws with the round head here. Maybe it'll help if I put it on the screwdriver. Is that going to focus? I'll put it up against my shirt. Anyway, it's a little screw, there we are, focused, with a round head. The other screws I showed you, they had a, let's see if I can get one out here. Yeah, there they are. The screws I showed you earlier, they had a hex head like this. This is a typical case and power supply screw. I don't know if you can see, but it has a hex head. These screws that we're using now for the hard drive have a round head, so camera focuses, there we are. They have a round head. So we want to grab 4 of those per drive. So if you have 2, 3, 4, however many drives, you want to grab 4 for each, and yeah. You want to put the other screws back in the bag. Now the hard drives, they go in these bays down here. These are called 3.5-inch bays. And you see they have a toolless design. I don't know how good this toolless design is. This is a very inexpensive case. So I'm going to leave this up to the customer, but I'm going to place that in a lower slot. Actually, I'll put it back in the slot it came out of. It doesn't matter which slot you put your drive in, you just want to choose one that's going to look the best. So, me, I have a bit of a different approach. I'm going to pick a slot that's easiest to show the camera. So I've taken the toolless bit off, and I'm just going to put it on the drive holder below. And I'm going to screw this drive in fully. If you're not moving this system around, twist tie. Never want them in your system. Just found that. Sorry, thought I'd point that out. If you're not shipping your system or anything like that, it's all right to have the toolless design in. But yeah, you never want the toolless design if you're moving the computer around or anything like that. I like to screw it in anyway, just because the customer doesn't know what he's going to do in the future, so might as well screw it in. But what you want to do is you want to find which bay you want to use and just slide the drive into the appropriate bay. And it might take a little bit of force. Don't push things too much. And you'll see the screw holes line up. Let's see if you can see that. So, as you can see here and here, the screw holes have lined up. Now, you want to take the screws I showed you earlier with the round head, and I hope you guessed this, screw it in. Now, the snug but not too tight rule doesn't really come into play here. If the screw holes have lined up, generally they're not going to move, but it's still a good habit to get into. So you just want to make sure they're snug. Then you flip the whole case around, get these cables out of the way here, and there's two other screw holes in this mounting system. And if you use the toolless design, you want to put these in anyway. Or you don't have to, but I like to put them in anyway. And once all four are in, I grabbed the wrong screw. There's two types of round-headed screw. One of them is like the case and power supply screws, where it's got a different shape on the inside. This one doesn't have a different shape on the inside, it's still a circle, but it's a different screw. So you want to make sure you grab the right ones. Sometimes it's a good idea to check. So I'm guessing they are motherboard screws. So we'll check that after. But you want to make sure you have the right screws. I'm glad I saw that. You're only going to be able to put 3 screws in this one, since it has a, you know how we struggled to get it in? It's actually got a lock to stop it from going too far. So that's why I can't get the screw in there. So yeah, that's the hard drive installed and the power supply installed. Simple, right? Now that we've installed our hard drive and power supply, you'll want to grab your CPU, your RAM. Windows can wait for now, so we'll put that away for later. But you also want to grab your motherboard. Your video card can also wait if you purchase one of them. So basically, all you want to grab is your CPU, your motherboard, and your RAM. This is a close-up of the Intel Pentium G3240. The 2 sticks of Kingston Value Series DDR3, these are 4 gigs apiece, and the ASRock H81M-HDS. So now that we've got these 3 components, we want to set the CPU and the RAM aside for the moment and focus merely on the motherboard. So we want to open this up, and if you've seen my unboxing and overview of this board, you'll see that I've already opened this. So we've got 2 SATA cables, we'll use these after, or one of these after. So just set them aside for now. They look kind of like this. You might, if you know anything about computers at all, you would know what these are. You've got your I/O shield, so that goes in the back of your case, and it covers all your ports and stuff. And I screwed this up in the unboxing and overview, which may not be out yet, but this is your manual, not your motherboard. It's your manual with your driver CD and warranty card. We're going to set all of them aside for now. There's also this piece of packaging we're also going to set aside. And finally, your motherboard. So we're going to place that down, and we're going to close up the box here. And this makes a great workbench for your motherboard, CPU, and memory. Now, the motherboard is in an anti-static bag. This bag basically protects it from being shocked by any electricity whilst it's being transported to you. Once you take it out of the bag, it's not giving you any of that protection anymore, but this doesn't make it bad. This doesn't make it bad to sit on the bag. So basically, when you stick your hand in the bag, if it doesn't have this foam that you might be able to see, it's this pink stuff here, you want to be very careful where you touch the board. So you want to either grab it by the edges, or there's a bracket right underneath your CPU socket. It's a big metal bracket, you can't damage anything by touching that. But you want to handle it by the plastic parts, release it from its bag. Now it's okay to set it on the bag, even with or without the foam, it's fine. It's okay to set it on the bag. Some people tell you that it's not, it's completely fine. Yeah. We're not going to set it on the bag just because we're just avoiding arguments. We're also going to see I'm holding it by that bracket there and by the cover on the CPU socket. We're just going to place it on the box and this foam can go away. This is how your motherboard is most likely going to sit in your case. So you've got your CPU socket here, get that centered, your memory sockets here, and your video card socket here. You've also got your SATA ports over here, your USB 3.0 port here, USB 2s down at the bottom, and it took me a while to find these two ports, but your HD audio is over here, and your front panel connectors are over here. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's install the CPU. So we're going to set the motherboard away for the moment. Now we're going to look at the CPU. This is the Intel Pentium G3240, and you can actually see the processor is sitting right there. Now there's two sides that you can cut to this box. There's this side with some specs on here, and this side with your warranty label. Don't cut this label. If you cut this label, you won't be able to get any warranty specifications. There's just a little tiny piece of tape on this side. So you just want to grab your knife and cut that piece of tape. Very simple. The specifications on this says it's a dual core with 2 threads with Intel HD graphics. Intel HD graphics you don't need if you've got a video card, but most Intel CPUs have HD graphics. Now that we've cut that, you can open it up and lift these 2 tabs. Now you see this little cutout here? That is where the opening of the box is. If you open it like that, everything's going to fall out. So you want to open it this way, pull it out, and you'll see straight away there's your heatsink fan with thermal goop applied. So what you want to do is just set that down for the moment. Intel now owns McAfee, so you've got a free license to McAfee. I don't know for how long. I'm guessing it's like 30 days or something like that, but you've got a free license for that, so we'll put that in the box afterwards for the customer. And you've got this CPU manual, which I just dropped, with your Intel, I just dropped it again, Intel Go Faster sticker thing. I actually opened up one of these manuals the other day to see what's in it. It's like 20 pages of multilingual manual, it's just pictures, and the rest is like warranty stuff. This is ridiculously thick for warranty stuff. And you'll see the rest of this box is empty. So we're going to put that over there. Now, this heatsink fan is covered by plastic. Now, if you're following along, you'll be able to see this plastic here as well. Basically, don't remove the plastic until you're ready to install the fan. So what you want to do is flip it with your hand underneath. So you see I put my hand like that, flip it, and just lift the box. You might have to shake it a little bit. And you'll see the fan comes out still in the plastic. Just set the fan aside with the plastic still on it. Now your CPU is still in the cardboard here. You can either slide it out from the top, and there's this little cutout here, or I find it easier if you just see these corners that are in here. You just find one of them you can lift it out, and your CPU falls right out. This is a very expensive part. This is the most expensive part per square centimeter, and you'll see it's probably 2.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters. In Imperial, it's probably just over 1 inch by 1 inch. Very expensive. I don't know if you'll be able to see. It says here, Intel Pentium G3240 has the SKU number. Says it's 3.1 gigahertz, and it says it's made in Costa Rica. This box is now empty, so we can just close that back up and sit it over there. So here's the CPU, here's the heatsink fan. Move the heatsink fan away, bring the motherboard back. You'll see the motherboard has a cover over the socket. And on that socket cover, there's a little triangle in this corner here. Look for where the triangle is because it may be different on your board. The Intel processor also has a little triangle in this corner here. Now that's one way to know which way the processor goes. There is also a notch on the top here and the top here. Now if the CPU is going in this way into the board, see if we can move that board so you can see it a little easier. The CPU is going this way into the board. There'll also be a notch on this side and on this side in the same spots. That's how your CPU goes in. So to open this CPU, there's a little cutaway on one of the corners. See if I can find it here. There it is. And it's basically clamshell packaging. It just opens like that. Now when you don't want to touch the top of this CPU, and you most definitely don't want to touch the bottom of it. Same with the socket, you don't want to touch that either. You just want to stick your thumb in, open up the packaging, and grip it by the sides. I'll show you how to do that in a second. We're just going to close that back up here, because I'm going to show you how to open the socket. You'll see there's this little tension retention lever thing here. You basically want to push that down and move it away, and you'll see it comes up. Now this won't let me push it down real easily. I can still push it down, but there's a lot of force. You basically just want to move that all the way back, and you'll see this socket cover comes up. You'll want to leave this closed until you're ready to install your CPU. But there are 1,150 tiny little pins in there, and we don't want to break them, so we're going to set that back down for now. There are also 1,150 little gold landings, as you can see there. I don't know if you want to count them. There is 1,150. That's why it's socket LGA 1150. But you want to open up your CPU, find which way it's going to orient, grip it. There's two little cutouts in the plastic here and here. You want to grip the CPU that way, but we're going to open the socket first. You want to grip the CPU that way, orient it in the right direction. So there's the notch here and here, here and here. And I like putting one side in, then the other, and it just drops into place. This is inserted now. You can give it a little wiggle on the sides to make sure it's inserted. Do not put any pressure on this. This is a zero insertion force socket, or a ZIF socket. So you just want to close that back down. And now this lever has a lot of tension on it. So you're going to have to push really hard. And you'll hear a lot of clicks, and it's very hard to push down. But that came down, and this plastic bit came back up, or came off. That CPU is fully installed now. So keep this plastic bit that I just dropped. Keep this plastic bit, because if you ever need to send this motherboard back for warranty or RMA purposes, they won't honor your warranty if you don't ship it with this cover, or the CPU in. You don't want to ship it with the CPU in though, because you may not get your CPU back. You always want to have this cover on you, so we're going to set that where we remember it. Now for the heatsink fan. You'll see there's thermal paste right there. There's those three lines, they're thermal paste. If yours doesn't have thermal paste, you'll need to buy some aftermarket thermal paste and install it yourself. Basically, this fan, if we lift it out, actually before we do that, there's a hole in each corner of the CPU socket. So there's one here, 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 and here. I'm not touching the board, by the way. These pegs, as you can probably see, in each corner of the heatsink fan, so here, 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 and here, have to go in those holes. So yeah, there's little pegs that have to go in. So basically, this CPU fan can go any way you want. It can go this way, any way you want. What we're concerned with is not exactly looks. If you're a real OCD person, you might want the Intel logo the right way. It's up to you. I don't really care about the Intel logo being the right way. What I do care about is this fan wire. So you see the fan wire comes out here. And the CPU fan header is over here. So if I have to plug this fan in, you see, let's get that out of the way. It has to reach over the fan. So what we're going to do is move it so the cooler is this way. And now the plug is right there. So what we're going to do is make sure it's lined up correctly so that all of the little plastic pegs are in the holes. And then we're going to see these little plastic bits. They kind of wiggle a bit. You want to push them in until they click. And you want to do opposite corners. You don't want to put any pressure, any unnecessary pressure on your CPU. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And you just want to kind of double check them there. Another way to check is to pick it up by the heatsink and see these little white bits. If they're white with a little black bit in the middle, it's came through correctly. You want to check all 4 of them. By the way, it's alright to hold it by the heatsink. It's completely fine. There's no damage you can do by holding that unless you've got a really big board. Now we want to take this fan cable, and I don't have any zip ties on me at the moment, but what you would do is you would roll this up in your fingers like that and zip tie it. Actually, I'm going to go see if I have some zip ties. I'll be right back. What do you know? I do have some zip ties. So what you want to do is grab your cable, wrap it around your fingers like so. So you've got a little bit of cable left over at each end. And then you see this loop. You just want to pinch it together, grab a zip tie, and this can be a little bit difficult, but you basically just want to zip tie it together like so. Now you might need to use 2 zip ties here, which I am going to use. So once you've got the first one on, it's a little easier to put the second one on. So you just kind of loop it, put it on, and tighten it down once you're happy. So it's the same rule again, snug but not too tight, and you just want to cut the tails off. So 1, 2. So now we've cut those zip tie cables or tails off. You just want to bend this fan header. You see there's a little dents in the fan header. They match up with dents in the fan connectors on the board. You just want to plug that in. So you see now that fan's out of the way. It's never, hopefully, going to fall into the fan. There's no real chance it will. And yeah, that's the CPU installed. Next, we want to take our RAM and basically unbox it. Always cut away from yourself. And we'll see if we can open this RAM here. Now this is half height RAM. Your RAM might be a little larger. Well, most likely it'll be a little larger. So you just want to open the clamshell. Sometimes the most difficult part of building a computer is getting the parts out of the box. So we've got our 2 sticks of half height RAM here. And these are our RAM sockets here. Now you might be able to see on your board, I can just see it under the heatsink here. It's etched right on the board, DDR3A1, DDR3B1. Now, that basically means that this is the first RAM socket and this is the second RAM socket. So what we're going to do is grab our stick of RAM. Your RAM might have heat sinks on it, this stuff doesn't, but you'll see there's a little notch, if I can grip this properly, in the middle, well, just offset from the middle here. It matches the little notch in the socket. You want to put this in to the socket. Now you see, if I put it in the furthest one from me first, it's going to be a bit of a squeeze to get that between the CPU heatsink and the other stick of RAM. So I'm going to stick it in the one closest to me first. And you just want to grab your thumbs and push until it clicks. Make sure both sides click. Like that, and you'll see the retention clips lock up. And then we want to take this stick of RAM, orient it in the right direction, make sure the tabs are open. Hope that's obvious. If they're not open, you just pull them out like so. Slot your RAM in again, and this is 8 gigs now installed. And that's all the prep we need to do for the motherboard. There's no wires for the RAM, so yeah. Now that we've prepped our motherboard, I showed you this I/O shield earlier. We're going to install that now. So what you want to do, set your motherboard aside and bring your case back. Now if you've ever used a desktop before, this hole here is usually where all your ports are. This is where the I/O shield goes. So we're going to come around here. We're going to open it. You might need scissors for this. So we're just going to cut the top off here. And now your I/O shield is free from its bag. So this is your I/O shield. There's 2 ways it can go. This way and this way. And then when you orient it in the case, it can either go this way or this way. Usually on motherboards, if you have these large circles, they go at the top. Sometimes you don't have these are called PS2 ports, but nearly all of motherboards will have at least 3 audio ports, and they always, for the motherboards I've seen, go at the bottom. If you don't know, just check on your motherboard. If we look at the back of the board here, all the ports are here. Just check which way it's going to go in the relative position of the case. So we know it's going to go this way. Now these tabs have to touch the motherboard. These are called grounding tabs, and they're basically ground the ports to the case. So we know it's going to go and face this way. So what you want to do is come in from the inside, line it up, and just use a lot of force and push it in. You'll hear it click in. You want to hear at least 4 clicks, usually. But you just want to make sure it's in properly, and you'll see because there's a lip around the outside here. So now that that's installed, if you needed to take it out because you put it the wrong way or for whatever reason, you just push it and it comes straight back out. It's just a friction fit. So yeah, that's the I/O shield in the case. And yeah, now that we've prepped our motherboard, we can basically install it into the case. So what we want to do is get these wires out of the way. So I had to de-rubber band these cables earlier, which I neglected to do, so I'm just going to do it now, and we're just going to dangle them out of the case here. Just basically get all your cables out of the way. And these twist ties here, you want to not tie them back up, you want to untie them and keep them out of your case because they have wire in them, and if that wire touches anything, as I've said before, it will short out. You can use zip ties. Zip ties are fine. I used one on the CPU fan. But now that we've cleared out this space, we have etched here right on the motherboard tray. Don't know if you'll be able to see that, but it has, I can't read upside down, but I can see A means ATX, F is full AT, and M is micro ATX. These are different standards of motherboard size. Our motherboard is a micro ATX board, so we need to put a standoff in all the holes labeled M. So this one up here is labeled A, F, and M, so it's all of them. This one here is A, F, M. This one here is also A, F, and M, and our motherboard, I'm not sure if it will use this hole here, but this one's AFM. This one's AFM. This one actually can't hold a standoff. It's just a nubbin, a little brass nubbin that sticks up and holds your board in place. This one's M and this one's AM. So basically, these two M ones, we want to grab a standoff that looks like this. They're made usually of brass, which is not the best conductor of metal. So that's why they use them. And you basically just want to get them hand tight to start with. And if you have a 5mm socket bit, you can tighten them down with that. I'm struggling to get this one in. Or what I'm going to do is just grab some needle nose pliers and tie them down. Even though I have a 5mm socket, I don't know where it is and I can't be bothered getting it. So I'll be back in a sec. So I've got these needle nose pliers and we just want to tighten these down just past snug. You don't want to strip the threads. So yeah, that's tightened down. Now you just want to dry fit the motherboard. So you pick it up by the heatsink and slide it into the I/O slots located at the back of the I/O shield. It'll give some resistance. You just want to slide it in And this case is nice because it's got a nubbin here which will hold the board in place. And you want to check that all the slots are lining up and there's no grounding tabs covering any slots. So our motherboard looks good, but this standoff here is basically not able to be used because it's under the board and that could short out. So we want to remove the board now and remove the standoff. If I can get it out. There we are. And we didn't check these other two up here and this one here, so we're just going to put it in again. That's what she said. Or he, whatever. So that one I can see when lining it up, it lines up. This one I can see lines up. And this one up the top here I can see lines up. So the only one we're not using is the one down here. If we had a plastic standoff, we could use it in this hole here, or in this edge hole here. But basically, you want to use all the standoffs you can. So now we want to use our motherboard screws. They're the same as the case and power supply screws we used earlier. And we want to put a screw in every motherboard hole going diagonally. So we're going to start at the bottom corner down here. Now you might need a smaller screwdriver to do this. But yeah, it's the same rule, snug but not too tight. And you want to go diagonally. So we're just screwing them in here. We're just starting them, and this one doesn't want to go in. So you want to push the motherboard so it lines up. You don't want to force the board, you just want to do it so it lines up. Like that. And just make sure the cables are out of the way. You don't want to deal with cables. This one's got the nubbin in it. This one we're not using, so we're going to go all the way up to the top corner up here. And basically, these holes are very obvious. They have little metal bits around them to stop you from crushing or cracking the board. Some people say they're also used for grounding. I've heard that as well, but having it stop crushing the motherboard makes a lot more sense to me. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws to use here. So now we've done the last one, we just want to snug them up. And they're the same hex head screws we used before for the case and power supply. So just snug them up. You don't want to strip any threads here, you're not making it air or watertight, so they just got to be snug. And that's the motherboard installed. So if you want to one more time, you can just check them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, and actually it's only 4 we're using. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 and this nubbin one and the one we're not using. There's 6 holes in this board, we're only using 4. And yeah, so that's the motherboard installed. So now we've got to, well, wire it up. But before we do that, I'm going to remove this screw that's over here, which covers the PCI Express brackets. So we want to set our screwdriver to remove this screw. And hopefully these won't all fall out. And this is the same power supply case motherboard screw we've been using. This little bit comes up here, like so, and comes out, I think. Maybe not. Okay, it doesn't look like it comes out, guys, unless it comes straight out. No. Does this side come out first? No. Oh well, so that just slides up. Actually, it does look like it comes out. There we are. It does come out. And I think these tabs just bend off, but we want to grab our video card first and see which ones to do. So we're going to move this case aside, move this manual that we grabbed aside, and grab our video card. So this is the Asus R9 270X Top Edition. Top basically means it's the highest overclocked card you can get. I don't know if that's from Asus or if the R9 270X series in general. But we want to unbox this card. And yeah, so we have a box inside a box with this Asus logo here. We'll open this up and we get more boxes. So I'm guessing this has all our manuals and accessories. Yeah, it's got software, manuals, accessories, crossfire cables, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to close this up here. Put that back in the box just for safekeeping. Got a couple of bits of hopefully anti-static foam. And finally, the video card. Now, Asus always does a good job of having their cards look great, which is always the most important thing. And we're just going to close this box up here. I'll set the video card on the motherboard box at the moment while we're closing this up. And you'll see the card is in an anti-static bag, so you want to touch the case before you pull the card out, or something large and metal in general. This is also taped, so you want to release it from its cage. And you always want to either hold the video card by the plastic bits and the PCI Express bracket. So now that we've got that bag out, this is the card. It's got a little cover on this PCI Express socket here, as well as on the video ports. It's got huge heat pipes here, as well as two 6-pin power connectors, 2 fans to cool it, and we're going to check if it fits inside. Well, we know it's going to fit inside our case, but which slot it fits into. So we're going to bring our case back. I'll just check these cables aren't being crushed. Yep. Bring this fan cable out of the way. Now, leaving the plastic bit, the plastic protector on the PCI Express bracket, we want to lower the card in to roughly where it's going to go. And we see that it's the top 2 port things that we have to take out. So I think these just bend out of place with some force. That one pushes out, so you can put that one back. These ones, they bend. So you do have to use a little bit of force here. Just wiggle them back and forth until they come loose. And there are the 2 slots for our video card to go in. So you want to pull the little plastic protector thing off the slot. Make sure the slot is open. So if it clicks in, it's closed. If you push it out, it's open. There's different mechanisms for this. You always want to use the uppermost slot for this, for your first video card. Set it in place and push it in with a little force until it locks. Should lock into place. That's in, just a little bit of force, and now we're going to screw it in with the same, I think it's the same, motherboard screws. If not, we'll just check the other screws. So you might not be getting a very good angle of this. but I'm sorry. Sometimes you have to force components a little bit, like this bracket we're trying to use. We have to force it into place a little bit with our arm, which you probably can't see. So I'm going to turn the case this way. No, you still can't see. Oh well. It's this bit here that we're trying to force. But I'm just going to put the screw in. A little bit. No. These are not the right screws. Are we supposed to use these ones? Let's see. Yeah, so we have to use the screws with the rounded head. So it's the round shape and the rounded head. We have to use these screws. And 2 of them go in a 2-slot video card. So we want to use the same rule, snug but not too tight, until we're ready to seat it down. So we're going to screw it in until it stops, pretty much, which it isn't, which makes me believe it's the wrong screw. No, it seems to be alright. So we're going to screw it all the way down. And there. That's in. So we want to grab this piece we took, slide that back in, push it down, and put that screw back in, which was standard case screw. This basically holds the cards in place even if the screws fall out. So that screws back into place like that. That's our video card installed. Now we just have to hook power up to everything. So, power, data, all of that stuff. So first, I think we'll start by untangling all these cables. So, the biggest connector you're going to deal with is your main motherboard connector. It looks like this. It's a 20+4 pin. Older motherboards, they only use the 20 pin. Newer ones, they use a 20+4 pin. So you'll see this little 4 pin comes off like that. The clip on this motherboard goes to the outside. So what we want to do is there's no real elegant way to do this, but there's no real elegant way to film this, but we just want to see how it's going to go. So we're going to push it in, the 20 pin, and then the 4 pin will only go in one way. There's 2 little clips that go towards the 20 pin, and that goes in the same way. It may be a little bit of a stretch like this one is, since we do have some short cables on our power supply, but it should go in like it just did. So that's our main motherboard connector done. Next we want to do the 4-pin CPU connector. So on, this is a 8-pin, I'm guessing that's not the one we're looking for. This power supply is a little odd. Is that it there? No, that's the same one. Oh no, it is the CPU connector. And it's got an extension cable. These are extension cables. And it's got a 8-pin, 4-pin to 8-pin adapter on the end. So we want to take that off because we're only going to use a 4-pin. So we'll put that in the motherboard box for the customer. And we want to bring this around. And the CPU connector's all the way up in the top corner. And this will only go on one way, which is that way, I think. No? that way, with the clip again to the top edge of the board this time. Yes? Yeah. Sometimes this might be hard if you've got big fingers like me, but you just want to push that in until it clicks, and we'll tidy these cables up afterwards. Next, you want to look for a cable that says, or in this case doesn't say, you want to look for a 6-pin cable. Now this video card takes 2, and the clips go to the top of the card. So we'll put one in, and we'll see if there's another one here. I don't believe there is. No, there isn't. So in the box of accessories we got before, there was a part in a bag that was 2 Molex to 1 6-pin. So we want to use that. Get it out of its bag. Now you only want to use these if you absolutely have to. We have to here since we don't have enough 6-pins. So we're going to grab a Molex lead, which is this one. That's a Molex and 2 SATA. This is another 2 Molex, so we're going to use this one. And you want to untangle it as best as you can. So this cable's got 2 Molex and a floppy, so you just want to plug the 2 Molex connectors in. Molex is a large 4-pin connector, by the way. And that gives us 1 6-pin, and we'll plug that into the video card. If it wants to let us. That doesn't want to plug in for some reason. The best idea, guys, is not to force anything. If something's not going in, try it in a different slot. There we are. So in that case, we got it in the other one, and we're just going to use the other one in the other slot. Sometimes things don't fit perfectly. It's just a manufacturing out of spec. So you just want to do it that way. So that's our video card hooked up. Next, we want to hook up the, well, let's do the, actually we can't with the video card installed. So what we want to do is, I'll be back in a sec, guys. So as you can see, we've already hooked up the 20 plus 4-pin and this 4-pin CPU connector. Now, as I showed earlier, our motherboard came with 2 SATA cables, which look like this. You'll see one cable came with straight ends, and one cable came with a straight connector on one end and a right-angled connector on the other. We're going to stick with the cable with the 2 straight ends. Now you'll see on the board, there are 2 sets of SATA connectors. One set is grey and one set is black. The grey set is SATA 3, 6 gigabits per second. The black set is SATA 2, 3 gigabits per second. You'll also see etched on the board that the top grey one is SATA-1, and the bottom grey is SATA-2, then 3, then 4 on the black ones. So SATA-1 is going to be read first by the motherboard, so if you want quicker boot times, you want to plug your boot drive into SATA-1. Really, it doesn't matter these days, but yeah. So we're going to run this cable afterwards to the hard drive. Next, we'll plug in our USB 3 front panel connector, and it's this really fat cable here. Sometimes it has 2 wires. We only have one USB 3 port on the front of our case, so it's only got one wire here. But you'll see it has 20 little holes, and it's usually a blue connector, just like the USB 3 connector you'll see on your motherboard, or on the front of your case, or on any device with USB 3. It's also keyed here, so it will only go into the motherboard in one way. And we're just going to install it right here where the motherboard says USB 3. Make sure the key goes to the outside of the board. Make sure you check your motherboard because it may be different, but for us it's on the outside, and we're just going to slide that on. And we're going to move this just sort of out of the way for the moment, if we can. Next, we've got our front panel connectors. These are all these 1 and 2 pin, oh, that's USB there. These are all these 1 and 2 pin cables here, and they're going to go on this part of the motherboard down here. Now, your motherboard manual will reference where this is going to go, where each cable is going to go, I should say. So if you look at your motherboard manual, I've got the page open here, it has a detailed diagram of where each cable will go, but it's also on some motherboards etched right onto the board, but I'm going to use the manual since it's a little easier to read. So we're going to start with the bottom connector closest to you guys. So that, according to the motherboard manual, is the hard drive LED. Now LEDs, it does matter which way the cables go. So according to this, the positive is on the bottom side of the motherboard. So we want to find the cable that says hard drive LED or HDD LED, which is this one here. And the positive cable is the one with the colored wire. So we just want to untangle this here as best we can. Also, if you don't have any colored wires, there's also an arrow on the tip of the connector, which also indicates positive. So we're just going to clear some space on the motherboard here, and we're going to place that on the 2 pins marked hard drive LED right there. The one directly above that is the power LED, and you'll see our power LED is split. So again, the colored wire is positive and it doesn't have an arrow on it, but it does have a plus symbol indicating positive, and the white cable is negative. So this is going to go on in the same way right above the hard drive LED, with the positive cable to the bottom of the board and the negative cable to the, well, one directly next to it. If I can get this on here. These cables are a bit fiddly, so just take your time. Now for the front panel switches. These switches, it doesn't matter which way they go onto the motherboard as long as they're on the right set of pins. So the bottom one is the reset switch. So this is this white and black cable here. So that goes directly next to the hard drive LED, and we're just going to plug it straight on. Like I said, it doesn't matter which way it goes on because it's a switch. Now, lastly, we've got our power LED, or power switch as it says on the cable, and that's going to go directly above that. Make sure you get it on the right set of pins. Like so. Next, we're going to hook in this little speaker that came with the case, and that's going to go on these 4 pins down here. Now, if you look at the manual, it will detail where this goes. So, according to this, usually speakers, it doesn't matter which way it goes, so we're just going to plug it straight on and see what happens, I suppose. There is no positive, I don't think, positive or negative. Actually, yes, there is. The positive is to this side. So the red cable is positive, and we're just going to slide it on like that. So that's that speaker. That'll give you your post beep. It's a little help when diagnosing issues if the motherboard isn't booting, or the computer isn't booting in general. Next, we're going to go to our front panel USB 2. This is actually a half connector, since we only have one USB 2 on the motherboard. As you will see here, we have one USB 3 and one USB 2. And USB 2 ports are these ones here. So since we've only got a half connector, we've got to check which side it goes on. If you have a full connector, which will have 10 pins, or 9 actually, it will have 9 holes in the connector and 9 holes on the board, but they call it a 10-pin connector. I don't know why, they just do it. But we've got to check which way it goes. So this is labeled for us, and it goes on the top like so. So the power is the top left, and VCC is power. So we're going to stick that on right here. Lastly, if I can find it, we have our front panel audio. Now we've got two options here. We've got HD audio, which is this connector here, and AC97. AC97 is the older standard. You'll see it has the same connector, but it's wired differently. AC97, I think, is from the 1990s and earlier. HD audio is the one that's on this board, and it's located here. So we want to find the blocked out pin that's here, or the blocked out hole, I should say, and the missing pin on the motherboard, and orient this so it's the right way, and just slide it on like the other connectors. We also want to tie this back later so it doesn't get caught in the CPU fan like it just did then. Okay, lastly, we're going to hook up this fan while I remember, and that's going to go into this little 3-pin connector up here. There's also a 4-pin connector down at the bottom, or the mid to bottom of the board here. It doesn't matter which connector you put it on. A 3-pin can go on a 4-pin, a 4-pin can go on a 3-pin. It's better to put a 4-pin on a 4-pin, but it really doesn't matter. Just as long as your CPU fan uses the appropriate amount of pins, because they use a special kind of control, and a 4-pin is known as a PWM header, which stands for pulse width modulation, which basically allows you to change the speed of the fan dynamically to either a temperature probe or the temperature of your CPU in the CPU's case, and they just slide on. But the 3 pins are only DC controlled, so they'll be 5 volt, 7 volt, or 12 volt. Next, we want to get these cables out of the way because we're going to install the video card. Now, this may be a little difficult, so you've already seen me install the video card, I think. I might have edited that out, but I already tried to, but then I uninstalled it. So we've got the PCI Express connector here. That's going to go into the topmost slot, which is a 16x PCI Express slot. We also removed the 2 covers that were in line with this slot on the back of the case, so the video card ports could show out the back. And we're just going to make sure that this little clip thing here is in the open position, which is on the outside, or as far out as it can go. We're going to grip our video card by the heatsink and the PCI Express bracket, like so. Slide it in, and actually, we might tidy up these wires first, so we'll be back. Alright, so we've tidied up the wiring, and now we're going to install the video card. So, as I said, we removed the back 2 slots and tidied up. We didn't tidy it up per se, we just kind of moved it out of the way. And we're just going to install this video card, so you want to kind of slide it in with these small cases, being careful not to touch any of your delicate components. Slide it into the PCI Express slot, which we showed earlier. If you don't know which one that is, it's this one here. It's usually the topmost slot is your fastest one, and you want to make sure it can fit the PCI Express connector on the bottom of your video card. If you're installing 2 or 3 video cards, or even 4, consult your motherboard manual as to which slots to use. And yeah, so we just want to line it up. Half decent firm pressure. Everything's lined up all right. There we are, it should just slot in. And that is clipped into the PCI Express bracket. So now you're going to grab your screwdriver and 2 of the screws with the round head and round indent, outdent, whatever it's called, bump, and you want to install it into this. This can be quite difficult with these metal bits like this. You basically have to have it lined up and pushed in so you can install the screws. Sometimes you'll need a smaller screwdriver, but I think we can do it with this. If the screw is lined up on the bit, right? So you want to make sure your video card's lined up and just start the screw at least. Sometimes it's easier to actually start it in the hole before you actually put the card in, or before you actually start to line it up. You just want to go with the easiest hole to put the screw into. And have I got the wrong screws? We'll see. Do these screws fit better? We were contemplating between 2 screws earlier and I couldn't. Those ones seemed to fit earlier, maybe these ones will fit now. No, thread seems to be too thick, so we'll put the smaller ones in. So we're just going to snug the screws up, and once you get one in, it should be a little easier to get the other one in. And those screws are in, so now we want to put this PCI Express slot cover back on, which most cases that I've seen don't have this. This one does, but it just kind of clips in, pushes down, and you grab these standard case screws, which we also used on the power supply and the motherboard, and you just screw it in, and that holds the actual card in place, even if the screws aren't there. Like so. Now that the card is installed, we've got to hook power up to everything. So we've already done the motherboard and CPU. So the video card, it came with this adapter. It was 2 Molex to 1 6-pin. We're actually going to have to use this. If you don't have to, I would recommend you don't use it. But our power supply only came with 1 6-pin connector. So we're going to plug this straight onto the card. And the clips go to the outside on this particular card. So we're going to clip this on. I had trouble with this earlier. There we are. That one's in. And that's our video card hooked up to power. And data, actually. So next we're going to want to hook up our hard drive, which is down here. So you've got your SATA power connector at the bottom there, and the SATA data connector at the top there. So since it's at the bottom, we're going to start with the SATA power, my bad. And they're an L-shaped connector, so they only go on one way. And looking at the bottom of the hard drive there, we just want to line it up and slide or push it on. These don't have any clips, so you just got to kind of push it on until it stops, like that one did. And finally, our hard drive SATA data connector. So that's this one here that we plugged into the motherboard earlier. Check which way the cable goes and click it on. So that's everything hooked up. It looks like kind of a mess at the moment, but this is enough to see if the computer will boot. So before we boot it, you just want to make sure all of the connectors are out of the way of any, or all of the cables, sorry, are out of the way of any fans. So it looks pretty good here. I'll just check the video card, and that looks pretty good. So we're going to stop right here and test boot it. So see you in a sec. Now that the computer's ready to test boot, I've grabbed my monitor, keyboard and mouse. Now you don't want to plug the computer into any internet, any printers, any USB drives, anything like that until you've installed your operating system and all of that stuff. So we're going to start with the video to my monitor. So it's just a DVI connection which is going in on the back of the video card here. Do not use the video on the Intel CPU/motherboard if you have a video card installed. We're also going to plug in my USB keyboard and mouse. Make sure you use the black USBs for this, as USB 3 doesn't help us at all with keyboards or mice. Lastly, plug your power in and turn your power supply on, turn the wall on, and just before we turn it on, a little bit of PC building superstition. Never put the side panel on when you're test booting, because you know if you put the side panel on, it's not going to boot up. Also, if you hurt yourself, cut yourself, whatever, it's good. It means it's going to work first time. I haven't hurt myself, so all we can do is hope. Now, we call this the smoke test because, well, if it smokes, you've done something wrong. Yeah, so we're just going to reach around and press the power button here. Fans are spinning. Do we get a beep? Reboot and select proper boot device. This is good. This means that it's posted and is working. That was actually really quick. So now what we've got to do is tidy up our cabling, install Windows, and yeah, that's about it. It's ready to send back to the customer. While we're here, we'll just make sure the reset button works. Yep, and are our lights on? Yep, the lights are on. So we know we've hooked up the front panel connectors correctly, and now we're ready to tidy up the wiring and install Windows. So now we've installed the operating system, we've tidied up the cabling, as you may see, and now it's time to, well, give it to the customer. But before we can do that, you'll see we have to put the side panels on, and, well, the customer needs all the spare parts. So I'm going to come around here and show you what they need. So, yeah, we've got the motherboard box with the power cable, the CPU socket cover, a spare cable that we took off. This was for the CPU connector, the two PCI Express brackets, all their screws and all their manuals. So all of this is going in the motherboard box for the customer. Now, one last thing. We've installed Windows, but we need to put the Windows Certificate of Authenticity on the side panel. But to do that, we have to put the side panels on. So we'll grab them out of the box. We'll start with the back side panel, figure out which way it goes. And like I said, this case is a little different. Usually they just slide on. So what we're going to do is lay the case down and put the panel on. These panels on this case just kind of clip on, and there, that's on. All we got to do is put the screw in. And now we'll do what I call the front panel, but it's really the left side panel. And this one goes on a lot easier. This case that we chose doesn't have room for cabling at the back, so all the cabling is at the front, and it's a little bit of a tight fit to get these panels on. But all you want to do is hold the panels into place, put the screws in, snug them up. There's no left or right screw for these case screws, but I'm putting the thumb screws on the side where you can access the motherboard, so if the client wants to get into it, he can get in easy, because there's nothing really on the right hand side where you would usually have your cables. It's really just, well, actually there's nothing there. So those panels are on now. Just make sure the screws are on all the way. And yeah, that's it. So, as you've probably seen in this video, Windows comes in this little packet like this now, and as soon as you crack the seal, you've got the Windows Certificate of Authenticity and another seal to get the disk out. You probably wondered how we installed Windows. We installed it with this USB CD drive here, so we just plugged it in and installed it off the disk like you would if you had an optical drive. But this was fine, it took about the same amount of time. So yeah, that's how we installed it via the disk. But now we need to put the Windows Certificate of Authenticity, and I think I'm going to put it down here. So this is on the reverse side panel, so the back. The right hand side panel. We're just going to peel it off here. These things are really difficult to peel off. And once you sit them on, they're not designed to come off. So if you try and peel it off, it will rip into multiple pieces, and yeah. So we've just put that on the bottom of the case right there, and that's our Windows Certificate of Authenticity on. So this Windows CD is going to go in the motherboard box with all the other components, and we're just going to put it under the manuals because it's the biggest part. And yeah, we've also left the anti-static, anti-conductive foam in the motherboard box, and this is done. So thank you for watching, guys, my build log of the budget gaming system. Hope you have enjoyed. Please don't forget to comment, rate and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.